The wind howled across the ice plains like a living thing, clawing at the metal walls of Outpost 9. Mara Keene pressed her gloved hand against the observation glass, watching the white storm swirl beyond. Somewhere out there in that endless expanse of snow and silence, the Thrall hunted. Massive lupine creatures with silver hides and eyes like molten amber. They were the apex of this frozen world, and the reason the colony still had to keep its perimeter shields up at all times. But tonight was different. The Thrall were not hunting. They were mourning. Through the blizzard, Mara could see them gathered around a shallow hollow in the snow. Their movements were slow, deliberate. Heads bowed, tails low, their mournful cries carrying through the storm like songs of grief. She had never seen anything like it. Two smaller forms, the size of wolf pups, lay motionless between them, half buried by ice crystals. The cubs. Her scientific curiosity warred with her empathy. These creatures displayed emotion, ritual even. It wasn't instinct. It was culture. She began to record the footage, whispering her notes into a recorder, but her voice trembled. "They're grieving," she murmured, "not just reacting. They understand loss." The largest Thrall, one she had marked as Alpha, lifted its head toward the outpost. For a fleeting second, its eyes met hers through the glass. There was no animal fury there. Only sorrow and something else. A question. Then the storm thickened, swallowing the pack in white silence. Mara stepped back, breath fogging her helmet, heart pounding. Outside, the cubs lay still, and the howling faded into nothingness. She didn't yet know it. But that night marked the beginning of a bond that would defy species, logic, and the cold laws of survival. The storm had raged for 3 days without pause, turning the colony's perimeter into a wall of white noise and frozen static. Inside the dim-lit lab, power flickered as Mara hunched over the failing grid monitor. Half their energy reserves were gone. If the storm didn't ease soon, Outpost 9 would freeze solid. But what caught her attention wasn't the power drop. It was a strange motion signature flashing near the ridge where the Thrall had gathered days ago. No living thing should have been moving in that cold. Yet something was there. Mara grabbed her thermal gear and rifle, ignoring the commander's warnings over the comm. The last thing she saw before stepping into the storm was the emergency lights dying behind her. Out here, the world was a white void. She navigated by memory, every breath crystallizing inside her helmet. When she finally reached the ridge, her heart clenched. The snow had been torn apart, burned black by energy blasts. Scorch marks surrounded a crater of melted ice, and in the center, cold metal glinting faintly, a drone hovered low to the ground. It wasn't human. Its design was insectile, covered in plates that shimmered like liquid glass. Beneath it, two small shapes squirmed weakly, the Thrall cubs. Mara didn't think. She raised her weapon and fired. The drone shrieked with a pulse of blue light, then collapsed, hissing steam into the snow. She rushed forward, kneeling beside the cubs. Their bodies were shaking, coated in frost, eyes half closed but alive. Something deep inside her stirred, a reckless compassion she couldn't explain. She wrapped the cubs in her thermal cloak, cradling them against her chest. "Don't worry," she whispered through the storm. "I've got you now." And for the first time, the planet seemed to listen. The storm did not relent. It pressed against Mara like a living wall, howling and clawing at her every step as she trudged through the snow, the cubs wrapped tightly in her arms. Her suit's temperature gauge screamed warnings, but she silenced them. The colony was too far. The ridge she had descended was gone beneath the shifting drifts. And every direction looked the same, white, endless, merciless. The cubs whimpered softly beneath her coat, their faint warmth the only thing keeping her grounded. Each breath burned in her chest, turning to ice in her throat. Her visor fogged, her vision narrowing to the rhythm of her boots breaking through crusted snow. She began to hum without thinking, low, steady tones meant to calm herself, but the sound startled her when the cubs responded. One gave a weak, trembling whine that almost matched her pitch. She tried again. This time, both lifted their heads and answered, their tiny voices piercing through the blizzard like fragile music. It wasn't random. It was a pattern, a communication. Somewhere deep in the storm, another voice answered, distant and powerful. The pack. Mara's heart leapt. She turned toward the sound, half stumbling, half running. The cubs grew restless, their energy returning as if guided by the call. Lightning flashed across the horizon, illuminating ghostly shapes in the snow, tall rock spires glistening like frozen glass. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw movement among them. Her legs gave out just beyond the ridge, exhaustion finally claiming her. She sank to her knees, shielding the cubs as the wind screamed overhead. Through her half-frozen visor, she could just make out glowing eyes moving closer, dozens of them. Golden and burning with intelligence, she managed one last breath, whispering, "I'm bringing them home." Then the darkness took her. When Mara woke, the storm had eased to a whisper, and the world around her was a blinding expanse of white. She shifted slightly, expecting the cold to bite, but warmth pressed against her chest. The cubs stirred, blinking at her with wide, unsteady eyes. Then she heard it, the low, rumbling growls of the pack. They emerged from the drifted snow like shadows made of frost and fire. Silver fur glistened in the pale light, eyes molten gold. The alpha approached first, head held high, gaze fixed on Mara. For a moment, instinct screamed at her to flee, but there was no hostility. Only acknowledgement, sorrow, and trust. The cubs whimpered, lifting their small heads, and the alpha nudged Mara gently with its snout. She realized she had carried them across not just the snow, but across the barrier between species. The pack circled, howling low and mournful, a song that rose and fell like wind through ice canyons. Mara's chest tightened. She understood. She had become part of their ritual, part of their family, and they were recognizing her courage and care. Slowly, the alpha stepped aside, signaling her to rise. Mara stood, arms still wrapped around the cubs, feeling the strange bond pulse between them. Around her, the pack's mournful chorus shifted to something lighter, a cadence of hope, of reunion. As they moved through the snow together, the planet seemed to respond. Crystals in the frost reflected light like tiny stars, and distant auroras rippled across the sky, painting the heavens in colors she had never imagined. Mara realized the Thrall were more than predators. They were guardians of this fragile world, its living memory and conscience. She breathed deeply, whispering to the pack, "We'll survive. Together." And in that moment, humanity was no longer alone, not on this planet, not in the universe, as the pack closed around her, carrying both grief and hope forward across the endless snow.